apologies for being a bit behind on the news, and it's just, you know what, you watch this channel, you know why I'm behind on the news, you get it. I have a whole bunch of subjects that I need to talk about, but in this video, we're going to be focusing on a recent EV pickup truck that was announced feels like a month ago at this point, but it's still worth note of talking about because it's very interesting and very questionable. And so without further ado, let's cue the intro and get into it. So a while ago, this company called Slate has officially, not launched, but revealed to the world a brand new pickup truck that is supposed to cost under $20,000. Oh wait, giant asterisk to that price. We'll get into that in a little bit. But supposed to start at under $20,000. And it's a bare bones pickup truck. 2-door, very light duty. In fact, the mechanical specs on it are, well, depending on what type of truck buyer you are, either relatively okay to incredibly concerning. It's a very wide range. It really depends on who you ask. Basically, Slate, don't know exactly their founders, but I do know that, funny enough, they're based in the very not so great state of Michigan. I say that as a Michigander. Based in the not so great state of Michigan, funded by Jeff Bezos. They created this basic, bare bones, 2-door, extreme light duty pickup truck with an emphasis on, well, biggest thing is lowering that price to as much as possible. Now, the big thing when it comes to this pickup truck that everyone is super hyped about is it's supposed to be under $20,000, right? Right? Well, I mentioned that with a giant asterisk. See, on this channel here, and you might recognize this when I actually do my electric car reviews, I never discuss pricing on a car factoring in tax credits and various other incentives. I focus purely on MSRP because not everybody qualifies for tax credits or various incentives. And MSRP is a hard number that at least all of us can start with and expect. So, where is the actual MSRP of this Slate? Well, I guarantee you this, it is not under $20,000 like what Slate is trying to lead you to believe. They're showcasing this price featuring the $7,500 tax credit, which means, yes, they're trying to say, oh, once you get the tax credit applied, which if you're buying that type of vehicle, I guess it wouldn't be that difficult to apply for it. But they're saying once you apply the tax credit, you'll be paying out of pocket under $20,000 for this pickup truck. Now, again, on this channel, oh, the wind's just blowing around sheet metal. Ain't that beautiful? Now again, on this channel, we do not talk about pricing factoring in tax credits. That's not how we do things here. And so where's the price tag actually going to start? We were initially guessing it would be around $25,000-ish. And I mean, they're saying under $20,000 after tax incentives. So I'm guessing between either $25,000 to $27,000 as an actual MSRP. So I want to drive this point into your heads because this is really what we're talking about here. And I'd also like to mention that tax credits aren't always going to stick around. They're just not. And given the current administration in right now, they're not really all in favor of EV tax credits. So I would not be shocked if that goes away in the not too distant future. That's another reason why we do not focus on tax credits factoring in price for these vehicles. That's why I judge things based off of MSRP. It's a hard point we can all start at. So, okay, yeah, it's starting between $25,000 and $27,000. Okay, that's actually pretty darn affordable compared to any other new car you can basically buy today. When you think about it, there really are not that many new cars you can buy today that start under 30 grand in general. You're lucky to find extreme base models starting at roughly 30 grand, maybe just the slightest smidge under. But for the most part, no, the average selling price of a new car today is sadly around $50,000. So to have an MSRP of half of that is really refreshing. Though I do have a slight few concerns about this because one of Slate's philosophies in designing this truck is to make it bare bones and no thrills. And I'm not completely against this idea. In fact, I know plenty of people who wish for this to come back, and as someone who advocates for choice, I'm actually not entirely against this at all. I actually love the idea of having a bare bones, no interior gimmicky feature thrill thrills where the sole point of the vehicle is to get work done. That's something that I kind of miss about like the 90s trucks, for example. They hardly had any thrills to them. Like they basically just had a standard FM AM radio and air conditioning. It's like that's it. No tech gimmicks, no screens, no backup cameras. Oh wait, but the Slate has to have one because federal mandates actually requires that it has a backup camera. But yeah, the point is no fancy gadgetry, none of this OnStar stuff like we're used to in GM products, for example. None of that. It's just a bare bones functional interior that's purely designed there just so that way you have a seat, you have pedals, and all the controls are only designed to operate the vehicle itself. No tech gimmicks, no infotainment stuff, just bare bones interior. And I know plenty of people who are in favor of this. My dad, actually, to my surprise, I showed him the Slate concept, and while he's not exactly thrilled with the mechanicals, I can understand why. I'm not arguing with him against that, but he loves the idea on the inside, how it's bare bones, no thrills. The vehicle doesn't even ship with power windows as standard equipment. That's an option you have to get. Yeah, it's manual crank windows. Remember those days? I do. But yet, to my surprise, my dad, who is super against new tech in new cars these days, loves the interior concept of the Slate. Now, he wouldn't buy the truck itself because, well, he has different requirements out of a truck which do not pertain to anything near light duty work. But I actually happen to know someone who is very on board with this concept, just looking for a bare bones functional truck and isn't doing anything that requires any heavy duty equipment. It's just a light duty truck that can haul couches around and such. In fact, I asked him to do a short snippet with me while we were in the car wash discussing why he's a fan of the whole Slate EV.
So while we were here in the car wash, because a bird decided to take you know what on the car, I got someone who's actually excited for the Slate pickup truck in the car with me. You might recognize him.
I'm back.
Yep. So, what's getting you excited about the Slate? Why do you love it so much?
Well, we were talking last night in greater detail, but I like how cheap it's going to be. It's going to be bare bones, but you can put what you need in it and nothing extra. And for me, I would just need it to haul some furniture and some just other light duty stuff when I move down to Texas and run around town, and I don't need high range, so it'd do what I need and more, and be customizable for brand new EV for cheap. So that's the biggest selling points.
Coming from a guy who currently drives an F-150.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
Yeah, it's really interesting though that they took this approach.
Yeah.
Just, you think all the automakers insist, oh, nobody buys the base models. No, everyone buys the higher spec models, which is true to a point. But when literally this is the actual marketing feature, it's like a bare bones basic interior.
Yeah.
Doesn't even have power windows.
Exactly.
You have to option those on.
Because really, why do you need them if you're, who rolls down their windows that much in a summer? Actually, only sometimes. You're usually going to be having the AC on, or if you're in colder climates, you're going to never be rolling it down in the winter time. So you just... Unless
you're going through the drive-through.
Yeah. But if your hand isn't enough to crank the old manual crank, then I guess we're getting too soft, because works just fine. Usually works better. Usually doesn't fail.
Yeah.
Compared to the electric ones.
As long as the handle doesn't break off.
Exactly.
I've been there before.
So yeah, I love the interior concept, and honestly, that's genuinely my favorite thing about the Slate EV. It's not the price. I'd argue that you can buy a much better used vehicle for that type of money. Not gonna lie, I'm probably about to do it by the end of this year, but I love the concept of a bare bones interior, and I do think that this should be an option. But the rest of the truck actually does kind of slightly worry me at least, it's not a vehicle that's fit for what I use a truck for. For one, let's actually talk about the powertrain specs. In fact, this is actually one of its biggest problems. The base standard battery is roughly 40 to 50 kilowatt hours, and this is an NMC battery, so that means you're not actually going to be able to charge up to a full 40 to 50 kilowatt hours. You can't charge to 100% if you actually want to preserve the battery, and given how small this is and how frequently you're likely to cycle it, I would not be shocked if you actually want to limit charging to 80%. But despite having a medium-sized battery, it can really only do about like 150 miles of range. Now, if you're doing around town city stuff, that shouldn't be too big of an issue at all. I mean, the average commute distance is actually under a third of the Slate EV's base range. So for some, especially if they're just using it as a bombing around the city truck, doing light duty truck things, not the worst idea ever, but 150 miles does limit it if you need to do actual distance. And this is also where another big pitfall is: charging speeds. It's limited to roughly 120 kilowatts, and upgrading to the bigger battery actually does you no favors. It would actually take you longer to charge the bigger battery option, which yes, they do offer, though it only gets you up to 250 miles, so you're only gaining an extra 100 miles. And again, you're paying more money on top of this already low base price, so it starts to bring you up to that above $30,000 MSRP, which again, you can buy pretty decent cars for $30,000, albeit no, they might not be our today's luxury vehicles, but it's hard to buy a bad car around that price point, if I'm being honest. And yeah, speccing for the bigger battery will only increase charge times if it's still limited to the same 120 kilowatts that the small battery is limited to. As long as you're not planning on doing anything other than just bombing around town doing light duty truck things, then okay, yeah, maybe the Slate EV will do you just fine. Oh, and also excellent news from Slate. Thankfully they confirmed this. They will be using this standard NACS straight from the get-go. Excellent. We don't need any more CCS vehicles. It's just, yeah, $25,000 to $27,000 for a vehicle with 150 miles of range. I mean, I've heard worse, but it's kind of pushing the limits on, okay, is this actually enough now? At least in my opinion. And again, I know I've lived with a car with under 200 miles of range. You guys remember Red Fox, my first car ever? Yeah, in the winter time, I was limited to under 200 miles of range just because the fuel economy was so bad in that car. I know how to live with a short amount of range. It's just, I don't know, if we're doing truck things and, oh, here's more metrics. Towing, not that great. In fact, it's actually under pretty much any other car I can think. It's like 1,000 pounds worth of towing. That's about as much weight as the trailer itself. So yeah, you're probably better off just not towing with that thing, period. And then payload, I think it should be able to handle most light duty payloads, but it's still not particularly great. So yeah, you want to make sure you're not pushing this thing to any extreme limits, and this truck is just going to bomb around town. And I know everyone else is also pointing out the excitement with, oh, you can customize it, you can actually remove some panels, you can wrap it, you can even convert it to a two-door SUV. The market for two-door SUVs isn't particularly that high, if I'm being honest. I don't know. There's a lot that I love about the truck. The biggest things being the bare bones interior concept, which I actually do think we should have more trucks with this style of interior these days, because trucks today have gotten too freaking expensive. It's because they got all of this gadgetry and all sorts of stuff bloating the interiors and jacking up the prices. It's not helping. I also love the size of it. It's actually a small truck, which, you know me, I love small vehicles, and so I 100% appreciate that. And actually, if I were to buy a truck, I don't need a 4-door pickup truck. I would be perfectly fine with a 2-door, because to me, if I'm hauling people around, that's what a sedan's for. In fact, I reckon my passengers would probably prefer the comfort suspension of a sedan rather than the stiff suspension of a truck. That's how I feel personally. But yeah, to me, the truck's not supposed to be the people hauler. It's the shit hauler. And so that is exactly what I'd use it for. I don't need more than 2 doors. In fact, I could probably get away with 1 if I'm being honest. But yeah, it's an interesting truck. My biggest complaints just stem from the powertrain and its actual like working capabilities. And while everyone's like, oh yeah, fleets are going to want to use this to get work done and take this to the job site, it's just, I'm wondering if these guys have actually completely realized and recognized the actual payload and towing capabilities of this thing, because it's not great. But that's what I have to say about the Slate EV. There's nothing else really left to say about it. Alright, thank you for watching. Do me a favor and interact with stuff below. My name is DeWolf, Random Alpha, signing out.